Level 1, the Sayan. You don't apply, there is no application. There is no website you can visit, no recruiter you can call, no office you can walk into. The Mossad finds you. Or more accurately, someone who already works for the Mossad remembers you exist. You're a dentist, or a real estate agent, or a shipping logistics consultant. You live in Paris, or Berlin, or Sao Paulo. You have an Israeli passport somewhere in a drawer. You served in the IDF years ago, everyone does. You did your 3 years, went home, got a degree, moved abroad, built a life. Then one day an old friend calls. Someone from your unit maybe, someone from university. He's in town, wants to meet for coffee. You catch up. He asks how business is going. You talk about your apartment, your clients, your neighborhood, normal conversation. Except it's not. 3 weeks later, a different person calls, a woman. She introduces herself with a first name you'll later learn was fake. She says your friend mentioned you. She has a small favor to ask. Nothing dangerous. Nothing illegal. She needs an apartment in your building for a colleague visiting from Israel, just for 2 weeks. Can you help arrange it? No questions asked. You say yes. You don't know why exactly. Maybe it's loyalty. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's the way she said, no questions asked, like she was telling you something about a world that exists just behind the one you live in. You are now a Sayan. The word means helper in Hebrew. You are one of thousands, an invisible global network of Jewish volunteers who provide logistical support to the Mossad. You are not an agent. You are not on the payroll. You have no training, no handler, no codename. You rent apartments. You lend cars. You provide a doctor's office for a meeting that never officially happened. You don't ask what it's for. You never ask. Most Sayanim go their entire lives without knowing what their small favors contributed to. Some helped set up safe houses used for surveillance. Some unknowingly assisted in the logistics of an assassination. Some rented the car that drove a team to the airport after a mission that made the news 3 days later. You'll never know. That's the deal. Level 2, the recruit. A year passes, the woman calls again, except this time she doesn't ask for a favor. She asks if you want to come to Israel for a conversation. Just a conversation, she says. A few days, we'll take care of everything. You fly to Tel Aviv. A car is waiting at Ben Gurion Airport. No sign with your name. The driver knows your face. He takes you to a building in a residential neighborhood. Looks like an ordinary office. No signs, no logos. You walk through 3 doors, each with a different lock. The last room is plain. A table, 2 chairs, a glass of water. They interview you for 8 hours. 2 people, a man and a woman, rotating in shifts. They ask about your childhood, your parents, your military service, your relationships, your debts, your fears. They ask what you do if a stranger approached you on a train and knew your real name. They ask you to lie to them, convincingly, about something that happened yesterday. They're not testing your knowledge. They're testing your mind, your ability to stay calm under pressure, to read people, to lie naturally and detect lies in others, to think laterally, creatively, ruthlessly. At the end of the day, they tell you to go home. They'll be in touch. You don't hear anything for 3 months. You start to think it was nothing. Then a letter arrives at an address you never gave them. 1 line, report to the following location on March 14th. You show up. There are 11 other recruits. You are class 17, or whatever number they assign. For the next 2 years, this group will become the closest thing you have to family. And by the end, half of them won't be here. The training begins. The Mossad calls it the Madrasha, the academy. It's not what you expected. There's no boot camp, no obstacle courses, no shouting drill sergeants. Instead, there are classrooms, surveillance exercises on the streets of Tel Aviv, role-playing scenarios where instructors play foreign intelligence officers, corrupt politicians, terrified informants. They teach you to enter a room and memorize every detail in 30 seconds. They teach you to follow someone for 6 hours without being noticed. They teach you to build a cover identity, not a fake name, a fake life, where you went to school, what your mother's maiden name is, your favorite restaurant in Vienna, your opinion on the 2003 Iraqi invasion. Every detail has to be real enough to survive a dinner party with actual intelligence officers from a hostile service. One exercise, you're dropped in a city you've never been to with no phone, no wallet, and a photograph of a man. You have 4 hours to find him, learn his daily routine, and identify his closest contact. If anyone suspects you're watching them, you fail. You pass, barely. The instructors only comment, sloppy but alive. Level 3, the Katza. You graduate, they assign you a desk in the Tzamet division, the collections department, the largest division in the Mossad. Its job, recruit human sources in every country on Earth. Your job title is Katza, a case officer, the front line of Israeli intelligence. They give you a cover. You are now a European businessman, or an academic, or a trade consultant. Your passport is real, issued by a country that doesn't know about it. Your business card leads to a real company with a real website and a real phone number that rings to an answering service in Brussels that will confirm your identity if anyone calls. They send you to your first posting, a European capital. You rent an apartment. You join a gym. You go to networking events. You are building what the Mossad calls a legend, a life so ordinary, so boring, so thoroughly documented that no one would ever suspect. But you're not here to be boring. You're here to recruit. Your target is a mid-level bureaucrat in a foreign ministry. He has access to diplomatic cables about arms deals with a country that threatens Israel. Your job is to make him give you those cables, not by force, not by threats, by friendship. You engineer an introduction at a conference. You buy him a drink, you talk about his work vaguely, respectfully. You discover he has money problems, a daughter in university, a wife who wants a bigger house. You don't offer money, not yet. You offer meals, concert tickets, a weekend trip. You become the friend he's always needed. 6 months later, over a bottle of expensive wine, you make the ask, just a small piece of information, a memo he's already seen. Nothing classified, not yet. He hesitates. You wait. You don't push. He slides a folder across the table. You photograph it in a safe house bathroom. 37 pages. You transmit the images to Tel Aviv through a system you don't fully understand. By morning, the analysis is on the desk of the Mossad director. You meet your source again 2 days later. He looks nervous. You tell him everything is fine. It is fine, for now, but you both know he belongs to you now, and there is no going back. Level 4, the deep cover operative. 3 years abroad, your handlers rotate. You've recruited 4 sources in 2 countries. One of them is now providing classified weapons procurement documents on a monthly basis. Tel Aviv is pleased, but they want more. They pull you out for 6 months of advanced training. This isn't the Madrasha. This is Caesarea, the operational division that handles the Mossad's most sensitive missions abroad, named after the ancient Roman port city. Inside the Mossad, it's simply called the unit. Caesarea operates outside the rules that bind regular Katzas. If Tzomik collects intelligence through recruited sources, Caesarea collects it through operations that don't officially exist, break-ins, wiretaps, honey traps, and sometimes things that don't have names. They train you in advanced surveillance detection, how to know if you're being followed by a professional team, not just a single tail. In some cities, counterintelligence services deploy 12-person surveillance squads that rotate shifts, change clothes, and use multiple vehicles. You learn to detect them. You learn to lose them. You learn to make them think they lost you by accident. They train you in covert entry, how to bypass alarm systems, how to pick embassy-grade locks. You learn how to photograph the contents of a safe, replace every document in the exact position you found it, and leave without disturbing the dust on the windowsill. They give you a communications protocol so advanced that even most Mossad employees don't know it exists. Dead drops in cities you might never visit. One-time pad encryption from physical notebooks that are destroyed after use. Satellite transmission, windows measured in seconds. Your first Caesarea mission, a hotel room in a capital city. A foreign nuclear scientist is attending a conference. While he's at dinner, you enter his room with a team of 4. You have 90 minutes. You clone his laptop. You photograph every document in his briefcase. You plant a listening device in his phone, one that activates only when specific keywords are spoken. The device is the size of a rice grain. You're out in 82 minutes. The scientist returns to his room, brushes his teeth, and goes to sleep. He'll never know you were there. 6 months later, the intelligence you gathered will help the Israeli Air Force plan a strike on a facility that the scientist helped design. You'll watch it on the news like everyone else. Level 5, the Kidon Operative. They don't ask you, they watch you. For years, your psychological profile, your performance under stress, your willingness to do things that exist in a moral space most people will never visit. When they're satisfied, a senior officer sits you down in a room with no windows and says one word, Kidon. Kidon means bayonet. It is the Mossad's targeted killing unit, the most classified, most feared, and most deniable element of Israeli intelligence. Fewer than 75 operatives at any given time. They exist within Caesarea the way Caesarea exists within the Mossad, a layer inside a layer. No one outside the unit knows who's in it. Inside the Mossad, Kidon operatives use aliases even with their colleagues. Your own family doesn't know. Training is different now. You learn combat and close quarters skills. You learn to kill with a handgun at 3 meters, 2 shots, center mass, in under a second. You learn to use poisons that mimic heart attacks, anesthetics that work through skin contact, devices that leave no forensic signature. You train on motorcycles, high-speed riding through dense urban traffic. Motorcycles are a Kidon trademark. Fast approach, fast exit, impossible to track in gridlock. You work in cells of 2 to 4 operatives called kuliot. Each cell is self-contained. You plan your own operations. You scout your own routes. You identify your own escape corridors. If the target is in a restaurant, you know which seat he'll sit in, which exit the kitchen uses, and what time the shift change happens. Your first operation, a man in a European city. The file says he facilitated the transfer of weapons technology to a country that has publicly called for Israel's destruction. The Prime Minister has authorized his elimination. This is not a figure of speech. There is a signed document, seen by almost no one, that authorizes what you are about to do. You watch him for 3 weeks. You know his morning commute, his lunch habits, his mistress's address, and the brand of cigarettes he buys at the corner shop on Thursdays. You know which streetlights are burned out on his block. You know the response time of the nearest police station, 7 minutes. On a Tuesday evening, 2 of you approach on a motorcycle as he walks to his car. The passenger dismounts. 4 silenced rounds. He falls. You remount. The motorcycle disappears into traffic. 20 minutes later, you're in a different car with different plates heading to a different country. By morning, you're on a flight under a passport that will never be used again. The news reports it as a robbery gone wrong. No suspects, no witnesses. No investigation leads anywhere. You don't sleep that night, not because of guilt, because your mind won't stop running the operation looking for mistakes. There were none, but you check anyway. That's how you stay alive. Level 6, the Kidon team leader. 5 years in the unit. You've led 16 operations across 9 countries on 3 continents. You plan the missions now. You select the teams. You choose the method, the timing, the escape route. Every detail is yours. The operations have changed. They're more complex now. Multiple targets, multi-city coordination. One operation requires simultaneous actions in 3 European capitals. A surveillance team in one city feeds real-time intelligence to a technical team in another, which enables a direct action team in a third. 37 operatives, 14 cover identities, 9 vehicles, 3 safe houses, 1 window of 45 minutes. You brief the team in a rented farmhouse outside a city you'll never visit again. Maps on the walls, photographs of the target, satellite imagery of the approach routes. You go through every contingency. What happens if the target changes his route? What happens if local police stumble onto the surveillance team? What happens if someone gets caught? If someone gets caught, they have a story. A cover that holds for 72 hours. Enough time for the rest of the team to leave the country. After 72 hours, the cover starts to crack. After a week, even the best cover fails. The captured operative knows this. Everyone in the room knows this. You also run the operations that aren't assassinations, kidnappings. A nuclear scientist from an enemy state who disappears during a European vacation and wakes up in an Israeli interrogation room. A stolen laptop from a hotel safe that contains the blueprints for a centrifuge facility. A listening device planted in the office of a foreign head of state, one that transmits through a satellite system disguised as a weather monitoring station. The Lillehammer affair haunts every operation you plan. 1973, Norway. The Kidon team killed the wrong man, a Moroccan waiter they mistook for Ali Hassan Salameh, the architect of the Munich massacre. 5 agents were arrested. The operation was a catastrophe. It's still studied in training as the textbook example of what happens when pressure overrides protocol. You study it differently now, not as a trainee, as a team leader who knows that one wrong photograph, one misidentified target, one surveillance gap can turn a successful operation into a diplomatic crisis. Or worse, an innocent man dead on a sidewalk in a country that was supposed to be friendly. Every mission ends the same way. You sit in a room alone and write a report that will be read by 3 people. The Caesarea director, the Mossad director, the Prime Minister. Then you go back to your cover life. You cook dinner, you call your mother. You read the newspaper and see a story about an unexplained death in a foreign city. You turn the page. Level 7, the head of collections. 15 years in, they pull you out of the field. It's not a request, it's a promotion. You're now Rosh Tizamit, head of the collections department. You manage every Katza in the world, every recruited source, every ongoing intelligence operation outside Israel's borders. Your desk is in the Mossad headquarters, a complex of buildings in a northern district of Tel Aviv that doesn't appear on any public map. It's surrounded by residential neighborhoods, schools, parks. Your neighbors think you work for the Ministry of Defense. In a way, you do. You arrive at 600 every morning. On your desk, overnight cable traffic from every Mossad station worldwide, encrypted dispatches from Katzas in Tehran, Damascus, Islamabad, Ankara. A source in a Gulf state has reported movement of missile components. A recruited diplomat in a European capital has provided the agenda for a secret summit. A Katza in Africa is requesting emergency extraction. His cover has been compromised. You have 45 minutes to read, prioritize, and decide. The African extraction goes first. You authorize a team. The missile report goes to the analysis division for verification. The diplomatic cables go directly to the Prime Minister's office. At 7:30, you brief the Mossad director. just you and him. You lay out the overnight picture, what's changed, what hasn't, what's emerging. He asks questions you can't always answer. How reliable is the Gulf source? What's our fallback if the European diplomat is turned? Is the African station salvageable? You manage a budget larger than most countries' entire intelligence spending. You oversee hundreds of operatives who live under false names in cities they can never call home. You know things that would reshape global politics if they leaked. And you carry it in silence, not because you're brave, but because the system demands it. The hardest part isn't the secrets, it's the people. A Katza's wife has filed for divorce because he missed his daughter's birthday again. A source in the Middle East is getting cold feet and threatening to expose the relationship. A young operative just completed her first recruitment and is struggling with the emotional manipulation it required. All of it passes through your office. All of it is your responsibility. You've become the thing you never expected, a bureaucrat with a kill count. Level 8, the Division Director. 20 years, they give you a division. Not Tizamet anymore, Metzada. The Special Operations Division, assassinations, sabotage, paramilitary operations, psychological warfare, everything the Mossad does that it will never admit doing. You sit in meetings with IDF generals, the Shin Bet director, the head of military intelligence. You argue about operations that will never have names. You authorize missions in countries that Israel officially has no presence in. You sign documents that don't exist. Operation Orchard crosses your desk in 2007. Intelligence indicates Syria is building a nuclear reactor with North Korean assistance. The evidence came from an operation your division helped execute. A team of operatives broke into the Vienna apartment of the head of Syria's Atomic Energy Commission and cloned his laptop. The photographs on that laptop showed a facility identical to a North Korean reactor design. The decision goes all the way to the Prime Minister. The reactor must be destroyed. The Air Force will conduct the strike, but Metzada provides the intelligence package, satellite imagery, ground-level reconnaissance from agents inside Syria, electronic warfare capabilities to blind Syrian radar. On September 6th, Israeli F-15s cross into Syrian airspace. They drop 17 tons of bombs on the Al-Kibar facility. The reactor ceases to exist. Syria says nothing. Israel says nothing. The world finds out months later. No one knows how. You know how. You built the operation from the first photograph to the last debriefing. You'll never talk about it. Not to journalists, not to historians, not to your children. It will appear in declassified files decades from now, and people will read it and wonder how it was possible. You'll be dead by then. That's fine. You didn't do it for the credit. The weight of the job is different at this level. You don't execute operations anymore, you authorize them. You sit in a room and decide whether a man lives or dies based on intelligence that might be wrong. You've been wrong before. Not about whether to act, about the consequences. An operation in a foreign capital went clean, but the diplomatic fallout lasted 3 years. A successful elimination created a power vacuum that produced someone worse. You learn that every victory has a cost you can't see yet, and every decision you make will be judged by people who weren't in the room and don't know what you knew. Level 9, the Mossad Director. After 25 years, the Prime Minister calls you to his office, not for a briefing, for a conversation. He wants you to lead the Mossad, the Ram said, the director, the most powerful intelligence official in Israel, one of the most powerful in the world. You take the job for a 5-year term with an optional extension. You report to no one except the Prime Minister. You command approximately 7,000 employees, analysts, operatives, technicians, scientists, linguists. Most of them you'll never meet. Most of them will never know your face. Your day begins at 500 in a secure facility. The overnight intelligence summary, global. Every threat to Israel, categorized, analyzed, and ranked. Iranian nuclear enrichment progress. Hezbollah weapons shipments through Syrian corridors. A potential terrorist cell in a European city. Chinese technical espionage targeting Israeli defense contractors. All of it distilled into a single briefing document that you read with a cup of black coffee before the sun rises. At 700, the department heads arrive. Tizamet, Metzada, Caesarea, technology, political liaison. Each one presents their priorities. Conflicts arise. Tizamet wants to protect a source that Metzada wants to use for a direct action operation. If you use the source for the operation, you'll lose years of intelligence access. If you protect the source, a weapons shipment reaches its destination. You decide in the room. There is no committee. There is no vote. You meet with foreign intelligence chiefs, the CIA director, the head of MI6, the BND, the DGSC. These meetings happen in hotel suites, embassy basements, private aircraft. You trade intelligence the way currencies are traded, with leverage, calculation, and the understanding that everyone at the table is lying about something. You brief the cabinet on matters that most cabinet members didn't know existed. You show them satellite photographs of facilities under construction in enemy states. You present threat assessments that shape military budgets, diplomatic positions, and sometimes, whether the country goes to war. The loneliest moment is midnight, alone in the office. A phone on the desk that connects to the Prime Minister. One call can launch an operation. One call can cancel one. The weight of the phone is immeasurable. Every former Ramsad says the same thing. The hardest part is not the decisions you make. It's the decisions you don't make. The operations you could have authorized that might have prevented something terrible. And the knowledge that you'll never know if you were right. Your face appears in no photographs. Your name appears in no press releases. When foreign newspapers write about senior Israeli intelligence officials, they're sometimes writing about you. You exist as a rumor, a shadow with a title. Level 10, the ghost. Your term ends, a successor is appointed. You hand over the office, the phone, the files, the burden. You walk out of the building you've entered every morning for 5 years and the door locks behind you. Your security clearance is downgraded. Your protection detail is reduced. Within a month, the guards at the gate won't recognize your face. You retire to a house in Israel, nothing extravagant, a garden, a view of the Mediterranean if you stand on your toes. You read books, you walk on the beach. You look like any 60-year-old. No one stares and no one whispers. You are invisible the way you were trained to be 40 years ago in a room in Tel Aviv where a woman whose name you never learned taught you how to disappear. But you don't disappear, not really. The phone still rings, but it is not the secure line because that's gone. A regular phone. Former colleagues call. Current officials who need context on an operation that began 20 years ago. A journalist who's writing a book and somehow got your number. You say nothing to the journalist. You say very little to the colleagues. The secrets don't leave with you. They stay in your chest, heavy and permanent like shrapnel. You see the world differently now. A man reading a newspaper in a cafe, you notice his shoes, his watch, the bulge under his jacket that isn't a wallet. A car that passes your house twice in an hour, you note the plates. A phone call from an unknown number. Your pulse quickens for 1 second before you remind yourself that you're retired. Old habits, old instincts, you'll never lose them. Sometimes you dream about the operations. Not the violence, the details. The weight of a cloned hard drive in your coat pocket, walking through airport security. The exact shade of a safe house sealing at 3 in the morning. The sound of a phone ringing in a language you haven't spoken in 20 years but still understand perfectly. You think about the people, sources you recruited who trusted you with their lives. Some of them are still alive, some are not. You think of an agent you trained who was captured in an enemy country and spent 4 years in a cell before the Mossad negotiated his release. He's different now, quieter. He flinches at doors closing. You visit him sometimes. You don't talk about what happened. You just sit together. You think about the targets, men whose files crossed your desk with a red stamp that meant authorized. You never pulled the trigger yourself, not at your level. You signed the paper. That's worse. The trigger pull lasts a second. The signature lasts forever. A former Mossad director once said, "We do the things that let the rest of Israel sleep at night." You understand that now, not as a slogan, as a description of your life. 30 years in the shadow of a country that cannot afford to be naive. 30 years of operations that succeeded because they were never known, and failures that are still classified. No medals, no parades, no statue in a public square. Your name might appear in a declassified file in 40 years, mentioned once in a footnote. Some historian will read it and move on to the next page. He'll have no idea what that name carried. You sit in your garden. The sun is setting over the Mediterranean. The news plays on the radio, a report about an unexplained incident in a foreign capital. You turn it off, you already know what happened. You know because you built the system that made it possible. You close your eyes. For the first time in 30 years, you are truly alone. The cycle begins.